Archimex login confirmed.
Welcome to the Lodge. You've accessed
The Lodgecast Experience.
Warning, warning, dangerous spoilers ahead. Enjoy.
Welcome one and all, old and young, to another political episode of the Lodgecast. I'm your Lodge Master. With me as always is Brother Bieschke.
Hey yo.
And Brother Lucas.
Good evening all.
Tonight we are on the promenade of Burbank, out in front of the 16.
On the poop deck, as they say.
On the poop deck, with Kids Aplenty and our special guest, Brother Zach.
Zachary!
42 days to the midterms.
42
Locked
days.
and loaded.
Yes.
42 days.
Let's party.
All right, so last we met for a political cast, it was Darker Skies. It was Death of a Nation.
Oh,
Dinesh D'Souza's.
Bullet, I dodged. Thank you guys for falling on that grenade for me.
Brother Lucas stepped down.
He stepped down on that one. He recused himself.
That's right.
But now we're back to complete the circle with Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 11/9. Not 9/11, 11/9, the day that Trump technically won the presidency.
And Michael Moore did make a documentary called Fahrenheit 9/11, correct?
In 2004,
It made about $200 million.
I saw it at this very theater.
Wow, full circle.
Yeah. I know Brother Zach has reported that the box office has not been kind,
Dismal.
but
Maybe below Dinesh.
But we can't take too much stock in that because even though it may be for reasons unknown to us yet, we are in a 24-hour news cycle. It is the post-internet, post-social media era, whereas his previous documentaries came out at a time where we didn't really have YouTube.
you didn't really get it all the time sledgehammered into your fucking eyeballs.
Yeah, I think when you see a trailer with like the Parkland kids and a number of political actors of this past 2 years, and you just kind of feel like you already know the story.
Right.
And so...
And the story's not over. There's no ending, really.
And how can he be ahead of the story
Right, so...
if it's unfolding every minute?
And he said, don't come into this expecting to see, like, the P-tape. Right. But I just think, like, he's definitely in a sensationalist environment. Being a sensationalist and still drawing crowds is a high order, I think.
Right. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, in 2004, you didn't have the internet as it is, and I don't know. I feel people might be a little exhausted on the Trump news cycle to get out to theaters for this one, but I'm pumped up. Michael Moore's a hero of mine. He came to UW Milwaukee in 2000.
Michigander, right?
And Nader and Moore came for. I voted for Nader, and I was my
You're
early.
admitting it.
It was my
Shots fired.
It was my early progressive
No,
days.
that's fair. I didn't vote in the 2000 election because I was stoned, but
Whoa,
I should have. I should have.
Real talk.
I should have voted for Gore.
But he's always been a hero. I've seen everything he's done except for I only got a half an hour into
Canadian Bacon.
which
tried
we
watching
bailed
it. Yeah,
on
we tried.
this past week.
Hard pill to swallow.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. But all the docs you've seen.
I've seen all the docs, even the Hillary Hail Mary that he put out. I saw it with him over in North Hollywood when the day the Comey investigation was reopened.
Oh, shit.
Oh, wow.
So I've got history with Michael Moore. I can't wait to see what he's got cooked
Yeah,
up
Zach,
here.
weren't we in Chicago together at my apartment in Logan Square watching the Oscars where he called out Bush when he won the Oscar for Bowling for
That could be,
Columbine?
yeah, that could
Where he was
be.
like, shame on you, Mr. Bush,
It was
for
intense,
fictitious reasons, and the people were all losing their minds because again,
02?
it was a viral video. Yeah, it might have been 02, 03.
Yeah.
I forget, but I want to say I was with you.
Yeah, could be.
In the moment, he's usually it seems like he's hated. But in retrospect, when he did that, in retrospect, it's
of
he was
course.
on the right side of it.
Let's just for the record, Roger and Me is a great film.
It's a
Yeah.
masterpiece.
Yeah, Roger
I have
and
actually
me.
never seen it. Sorry.
Oh,
Jesus
that is
Christ.
well, but
What?
you're in for a treat because I think that movie is not.
It's a blind spot.
Like I'll put it this
Ugh.
way: Roger and me is
Don't
something
say
you
it
would
like that.
watch 20 years from
A
now,
tone.
and you would get nutrients from it,
Right.
Still, whereas
Roger
I
is
have-
timeless.
Yeah, it's timeless. Whereas it's about the man standing up to the man.
Yeah.
and I think that's in all of his work. Yet everything else feels very dated. Like I don't
Sure.
have a desire to rewatch Fahrenheit 9/11.
Right.
I remember
don't-
Fahrenheit
it's very of
9/11
a specific time.
being too long and top heavy, meaning the first hour was great, but in the back 90 minutes, I was like, damn.
I just remember walking into this theater with my boys, Brother Justin and Brother Austin, and coming out like we wanted to burn the fucking world down. So angry.
Yeah.
So pissed. And not pissed in just like non-constructive ways. Like, do we need to run for office? Do we need to stop playing video games and fucking do this? And then we went home and played video games. But
He does get you fired up, though. He does.
Yeah, when I saw it in Westwood, and Leonard Nimoy was standing in line behind me. So
Of course
that,
he was.
That was a personal, highlight of my life.
all right, well, let's see if Fahrenheit
Let's give him the chance.
11.9 can add a constructive notch to his belt of dots.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, oddly enough, I dreaded going to the D'Souza film.
Sure.
Dreaded.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I'm not. This is probably the least excited I've been to see a Michael Moore movie
Okay.
ever.
Maybe
Ever.
the opposite of dread
So-
is
Tepid.
So let's see. Let's see if he's got nowhere to go but up with this film for
Right.
me right now.
right.
But
I'm not expecting anything really.
I'm expecting nothing. I'm not. Look. At the minimum, he's going to deliver something far more competent than D'Souza, just from a filmmaking perspective.
Hey,
But-
don't get ahead of
No,
yourself.
all right, let's see.
Listen to the testimony
Okay,
first
all
before
right, then, fair
casting
enough.
your vote.
Okay, sir.
D'Souza might squeak one out here.
What do we think the theater turnout's going to be tonight, right now?
Ooh,
We know we got
Full?
one. We know we got one person in there.
But-
Like a
Any
one-star.
Russians?
But there might be some Russians doing some recon, but it is discount night.
Oh, yeah.
So we're gonna see
Who comes out?
who comes out for the lowered price, and see if anybody's curious. We'll do a head count. We'll do a
Yes.
head count. But yeah, let's head up that escalator to the stars,
Let's get educated.
and yeah.
Informed.
Ooh shit! It's gonna make the blood boil.
Power to
Get
the
fired up.
And we are back from getting hit in the face with the Mack truck that is 2018.
Fired up.
Screeching brakeless, just like no steering, power steering.
What's that snaps, Brother Bishke? Hit us with that snaps.
From the Rotten Tomatoes, Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 11.9 is a provocative and comedic look at the times in which we live. It will explore the two most important questions of the Trump era. How the fuck did we get here? How the fuck do we get out? It's the film to see before it's too late.
We're still in family-centric public, but it's a little later.
Bishke's feeling it.
We're
Man.
at-
He's not gonna hold it back.
This is late
They
night
put,
live.
swear words in the Rotten Tomatoes synopsis. I'm going to say them loud.
That's great, and don't let anybody stop you. Okay, so a lot of parallels with Mr. D'Souza's film, whereas his entire thesis with Death of a Nation was
Dinesh dunked on.
Yeah.
Dinesh dunked on D'Souza was that you can't possibly compare Trump to Hitler because Hitler was liberal. This movie lays out quite a different strategy with connecting the rise of Nazism, but with a lot more evidence than Dinesh provided.
That happened in about movie 5 of 6 in this. There's about 6 movies here.
There are.
At least 3 for sure.
He opens with a very similar opening to Dinesh. I leaned over to Bishke and I said, "We're watching the beginning of the D'Souza movie over again, which is like, and Michigan goes to Trump, and Florida goes to Trump. It's election time.
Back up. But can we go before that opening? Like the cold open is like the super diehard Hillary
Fight
supporters,
song.
and for whatever reason, I thought it was the funniest, sickest joke I ever heard because. It was like a caricature of happy people.
It's like Sacha Baron Cohen.
Like it was so fake. Like it was so absurd.
Here's what it is.
I lost it. I lost my mind.
There has been so much media that has covered this exact same material since 2016 that there is a spectrum of how to do it quote unquote right and how to do it quote unquote wrong. Right makes you feel the sting, makes you feel the anger, makes you feel like let's not ever let this happen again.
Yeah.
Wrong, strangely enough, right is how Michael Moore does it. Like, this was effective. This was an effective Hillary losing suite.
Fire poker.
But Dinesh's movie was so inept on a filmmaking level that he missed
he's just
that
a professional
layup.
troll. We shouldn't really compare the two because Moore has an Oscar and Moore is like a master craftsman.
Well, Lucas, speaking as someone who wasn't at the previous film because he couldn't take the heat,
LT
I have a little bit more to say.
By the law,
it was such a layup for Dinesh to do this, but the talent and the technique was not there. Moore doesn't want to tell us this, but because he has to, he's going to craft it as best as he can for the maximum impact. And shit.
He makes the layup very well.
Yeah.
It's like a backwards layup.
Yes.
It is done very well, and yet you're right, because it feels so familiar, because I'm still reeling from that night emotionally.
Right.
But just the media saturation of watching the same horror show replayed over and over again. It wasn't until he goes through that, he takes us through, okay, well, how do we get to that?
How the fuck did we get here?
How the fuck did we get here? But immediately, it's even that line, and that's even in the trailer, and yet in the movie theater, I still laughed at it, and it's like, Michael Moore is very skilled at blending things that make you...
I was dying, Zach. I was crying tears of pure, laughs. I can't explain that.
He knows, he's got a very sharp sense of humor, but he also, grabs you by your lapels and shakes you, and he associates with the blue-collar worker, average folk, across all race and gender lines, and he's been doing that since Roger.
He's a mascot now.
Yeah, he's a mascot. That's right. When he shows up, it's like, well, Michael Moore is here, and that's kind of the joke, right? When he shows up at a protest.
In this movie, there's a great moment where some city officials are under siege, and they're like, protesters have just showed up. They're calling 911, and the police are like, are there any weapons present? They're like, Michael Moore is here.
I'm going to tell you, one thing he does that separates him distinctly from a faker like D'Souza is he's not afraid to look in the face of his own hopes pinned onto another person and say, you know what? He does. There's a few instances of this. One is where Obama comes to Flint. That's incredibly painful to watch.
Just heartbreaking.
It's incredibly heartbreaking.
It's Shakespearean.
Yeah.
It is straight up Shakespearean.
And it.
We should tell you what happens. A large swath of this movie is dedicated to the Flint water crisis, which if you haven't heard of it, look it up. But
it's a hellish detour.
It's fucked up.
It's really.
It's
whack.
when the movie starts to get really compelling.
It's really when it really got to me.
Because
it hit me hard.
We start with Trump's election, and then we're like, well, but let's see
seeing all that. Yeah.
Let's see a pathway, one of the ways that we got here, and there's this crisis, and Obama finally comes to town, and everybody's got so much hope, and they want there to be a state of emergency declared so they can start fixing everything and get everything the way it should be. And he basically buckles and does the same exact thing that the shithead governor did to placate everybody, which is take a sip a ceremonial sip of Flint water and act like all was well.
I mean, there is a key distinction is that Obama would not have privatized the fucking pipes and given them the lead water in the first place.
Yeah.
But yes,
he fumbled the ball.
I don't know.
Sold them out.
I still wanna understand. I mean, I remember watching that and just shaking my head, but being there in the room with those people cheering for their but it just shows
it was
you
palpable. It was definitely cringe.
It goes to his thesis of it's time to tear down the system, but it's so much more compelling than D'Souza, who's just basically, it's just hero worship of a guy who isn't even a guy that he thinks he is. He's like made up this superhuman cult figure of Donald Trump,
right?
And then
D'Souza would never cross the line.
He'd never
and
question
anything on his side of the aisle.
And you don't have to like say fuck Obama or whatever, but it's just like understanding that when you start hero worshiping politicians and you stop holding them accountable, then shit happens.
That's when things get dangerous.
And especially when money is pulling strings on people, and and the people power don't push back on the money.
Right,
it's dangerous. And so anyway,
Brother Bitchke, as the guru of Michael Moore documentaries, having seen them all, take us through kind of your journey.
In terms of, you want me to go through all his films? No.
No. Just
okay.
with
my
this
journey with his
particular
movie.
movie.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
We can do that privately.
Roger and me.
Which Lucas needs to fucking see tonight.
No, I think it's good he comes back to Flint. That really brought it, because what he's good at, like, I don't know if he's like, I mean, he's good. He's very good at putting together found footage. I don't know if he's the master of taking together, kind of these clips and giving his own essay spin on it.
He's good enough.
He's far better than Dinesh.
I thought in this one, I really appreciated his writing of voiceover and how minimal and kind of conversational and intimate it was. Because at a certain point, it felt like I was sitting next to him. And he was just like whispering in my ear, like,
it was quiet.
Yeah,
this
it was
is what's
intimate.
going on. This is like my rough cut screening. Like,
he's very skilled at it.
Yeah, so the flow of it was pretty smooth.
But my favorite stuff is when he gets on the ground level. He's interviewing people. He's in Flint. He's talking with working class people,
West Virginia,
or West Virginia. Like when he's talking to that guy in West Virginia,
was great stuff in West Virginia.
That guy
He's
needs
getting
his
A&E
own
show.
documentary.
That guy was amazing.
There's a guy in documentary who's running for congressman in West Virginia, and he is on fire. Like his righteous,
he's dialed in.
His righteous anger was so
everything about his mannerism,
motivating.
He'll fight you in the street.
I'm not joking.
And his campaign manager will fight you in the street.
For real,
Yeah.
they will fight you.
Everything about his demeanor screams like Trump head, but what he says is the extreme diametric opposite.
Medicare for all.
Which is
It's
almost
amazing.
exactly
minimum
what,
wage.
which is almost exactly what we need right
That's
now.
the
in my
future.
Oh,
That's
man.
the only thing that can save us. Somebody
hope.
that looks and talks like
I
that,
hope
Yeah.
and pray.
and what he's saying.
I hope and pray.
Yeah.
I wish we ended on that note. I wish we went back to that guy.
I kind of thought that was the strongest part, where he was going through these candidates.
Yes, the grassroots.
And the grassroots and people getting fired up when he goes in with the Stoneman Douglas kids. Getting that felt like it should have been the ending, but then it goes into some other areas.
It's all.
and,
It journeys. It gives you a vast tapestry of what shit is right now.
He knows how to be. He's so skilled at making a persuasive argument, as the footage of Jared Kushner praising Michael Moore after throwing his sicko premiere party shows you, which is great.
Yeah.
But he's really good at making that case, even to the point where like there's a section that the first 20 minutes of the movie where he's just showing how creepy Donald Trump is with Ivanka. But I was like,
painful.
it's so painful, and yet
There's some great segments.
I
of this.
felt
so-
complicit.
Yeah, but yet I'm kind of like, yeah, but this is a little trashy, even though I like it and he's good at it. And then he goes to Flint, and he shows you the real people, and that argument,
slows it down.
that argument where he connects the political wins of like the businessman who comes in and like is just like all the other corporatist
Oh my
fucks who
God.
like don't have the
Pure
actual
evil,
people's
like cartoonishly
heart,
evil.
like health in mind or the,
Like John Vernon, Animal House evil.
yeah.
Yeah.
He makes some really compelling arguments. I gotta say, at least in the moment, this movie is a hell of a lot better than I thought it was gonna be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's what really hurt me watching it is I was like, no one is seeing this right now.
Well, here's what needs
and
to
it's
happen.
killing me.
This needs to go straight to video, like now. Like that, they need to realize that nobody's looking at this in the theater. Make it available on VOD,
Yeah.
which is
And
probably
you-
what's going to happen.
And you don't
before
need to
the
see it on the
election.
big screen at all. Like,
No.
it's just it's.
It
you
needs
know,
to
get
be
it out
seen.
on
It needs to be
Netflix
seen.
before the midterms. Not that it's like
But let's go back to a couple of these beautiful early sections where, first off, he is chronicling his own history and run-ins with the Trump campaign.
Yeah.
Where
Amazing.
he
Utterly
realizes
amazing.
he realizes that Steve Bannon was responsible for the release of the home video of one of his films. He is palling around with Jared Kushner, who throws him a film release party and says that he's really important and that he's really great at looking into things.
He makes incredibly persuasive arguments.
But the coup
yeah.
d'etat is Roseanne had a talk show apparently hosted out of Tavern on the Green in New
Yes.
York, where Trump and Moore
Trump didn't want to sit down with him because he knew he was going to get grilled.
Hope he never makes a movie about me.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's so many delicious
Holy
just
shit.
little moments, and then
super meta.
the Ivanka suite where it just
It's disgusting.
goes into all of the shitty just vomit inducing stuff he said about his own daughter, and the final shot of this segment is Trump, Melania, and Ivanka, and the camera slowly inches Melania out of the picture, so Trump and Ivanka are just together, and then he just holds it. He holds it, and this, true Zach, this is dirty. This is dirty
It's
film
so
tricks.
dirty.
He holds it, and he's like, "Does this make you feel uncomfortable?" Holds it. And he's like, and then that begins but it's all out in the open, as is everything he does.
And just to piggyback on that briefly, if he made a whole movie in that vein, and he could have,
It would have
and he
sucked.
could have, it would have sucked. But that would have been the Michael Moore doing the Dinesh thing.
Yes.
Which is I'm just gonna tear this motherfucker down the entire 90 minutes.
Which wouldn't help.
And
Yeah.
and it would have felt like, I don't know, it would have felt like you ate a whole box of Mike and Ike's.
Yeah.
And
It starts out
you're
well.
really tasty and oh yeah, I remember why I like this. This is exactly what I wanted.
And then it solidifies
And then after
in your
about
gut.
6 Ikes in, you're just feeling gross.
Yeah.
You're just I'm complicit in this box and this experience. But
Yes.
anyway, then but he's better.
Complicit in the Mike and Ike's.
But he's so much better at doing that.
He's a
kind of
better
thing.
filmmaker.
But he also knows I've got your attention. Now I'm going to take you
Mm-hmm.
to and give you. I'm going to shine a light on something that has not been given nearly enough attention,
Right.
and that's the situation in Flint. And he shows you how they got there. How it's the same old Republican privatization bullshit, corporatist playbook that put those poor people in that situation, and Obama didn't help them, and
it's great that he did go back to Flint, because that's
It's
where
Roger
he
and Me.
began.
That's where it
That's
all
Roger and
began,
Me.
yeah.
There's even footage from Roger and Me in this toward the end, just showing that
Flint looks just bombed out.
it's nothing has
The
changed.
U.S. Army is doing live training military
Like it's
exercises
Syria.
with
Control.
pyrotechnics and concussion grenades.
So-
Not warning residents, so people are driving home and all of a sudden they
It's
think
surreal.
aliens have landed or something.
There was one thing that I thought. I mean, there's probably a number of things. Sometimes he doesn't provide full context, and he's just going to move his argument in quick.
Sure.
So, for instance, when he does again, shining the mirror back on the audience that is watching this movie, he goes into the Democratic primary, and he goes to the Democratic convention, and he shows how basically, Bernie was robbed. He kind of shows this whole narrative. just a little disingenuous that on the convention floor, when people are calling the votes, Bernie and his campaign had already agreed to give their votes
Right.
to Hillary at that point because he had already lost. So
He's taking dramatic license.
he's kind of making some dramatic license to make the point of it was a rigged process. You can make a case of how the DNC and the DCCC still has backs their preferred horse, but the way he did it made it seem like it was far more preposterous and like a puppeteering event than is truthful.
And we
Like,
know
it
to
just-
look out for that going into a Michael Moore movie.
Sure.
Like he's a provocateur. Like he's.
But he makes it seem like already agreed upon
Sure.
events are happening in the moment, and therefore. So I just got, it's important to look at that.
Of course.
And then the other parts that are really compelling and get you to sometimes take a step back and say, what's the reality here and what's he showing me? I think
I
that's
feel
just
like overall he's on his best behavior.
Yeah.
Pretty
much,
I
yeah.
expected much more tomfoolery in that department. It was surprising.
He makes a really damn good case. I think he makes a really, really damn good case for voting, and
Yeah.
and he really addresses like the biggest issue of the era, which is that the country is not being represented by the people in power to the proportions and beliefs that are actually there. I think when he follows the teachers' strikes and how they
That
come
was
up
also a great
really
section,
compelling. There's maybe, I don't know if this is the Salad Dragon because it's kind of in keeping with.
I hope I know what you're going to say.
I mean, you dip a toe. I mean,
Do we all have a Salad Dragon scene in mind?
Let me think. There's a lot to
I
digest.
think there is a scene that I consider the Salad Dragon scene that is a direct rhyme to Dinesh's
yeah,
Salad
so
Dragon
we're talking
scene.
about the same one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we go through a section where we're seeing film reel footage of the rise of Nazism, and we're making all sorts of connections.
Yeah.
And then we're at a Hitler rally, and there's a nice big setup. We see the big crowds, we see all the signs and the imagery. And then Hitler takes the podium, and when he opens his mouth to speak, it's a Trump speech. We're just dubbing Trump under Hitler's image, and it
works.
The whole audience,
incredible.
It lands.
the audience of 20 that was here tonight.
We're with
Vocal.
it. We're with it.
They were
We're-
amening a lot in the background.
There was a
Yeah.
lot of amens,
I
but
flipped off Roger Stone.
that was the moment where everybody in the theater came together for a good hearty "oh fuck" chuckle.
And I don't know how it's possible that in the amount of internet oversaturation of
How has
Trump
that not
and
happened?
Hitler that I have not seen
felt
a
new.
Hitler speech
Yeah.
with Trump's voice
Yeah.
lip synced into
Perfect.
Hitler's mouth, and it was
Perfect.
felt so radically exciting and hilarious.
It was
and
hilarious.
Spot on
They got good.
with the
they got good
mannerisms
clips.
and
yeah,
like
they nailed the same.
and then he made his case and like
Yeah.
of how a country descends into authoritarianism.
Yeah, it's
and,
not
like,
just a cheap shot joke.
it gets your attention and then he makes
yes,
his case.
Yes, and
Yeah.
whether or not, whatever angle you're watching this from, either you'll listen to that or not. Like I could see Fox News taking that chunk just alone and being like, look at this low class, low blow,
Yeah. I mean, it's tough for me to watch Michael Moore's films because I agree with him politically on so many levels, and not just try to play, well, I'm the Fox News watching guy that
Yeah.
you need to convince.
Yes.
And so, like, watching it from that perspective, I'm like,
I feel like you
I
and
don't-
I slip into that role
yeah.
quite
Whereas,
often.
like, I don't know if this is going to convince me as a Fox News watcher to think that Trump is, just because politically I'm not, it's like I'm already convinced. I don't need like further convincing. Like I like the stuff where I didn't know as much about, like the Flint stuff and stuff
Right.
like that. But it's like, so I look at Michael Moore's films more from like, is he going to convince average Joe
Right.
to
I
get
don't
his
think
butt
he
out
is.
there and vote? And I don't know.
I don't
so
think he is.
to that point, I think one of the reasons why I was so ho-hum about the movie to begin with is I've had the experience with Michael Moore the last, not Roger me, because I watched that after it came out. We were, 13 or 14 when that came out, whatever it was. So I wasn't savvy enough to really get it until later. But I mean, the last 15 years, really since Bowling for Columbine on, I feel like when you first discover this guy's work, it's so impactful. You come out of the theater on fire, and then nothing changes.
Yeah.
And then you start to get into, he's preaching to the choir. And then, right, like Bishke, you start thinking,
How
get
does
into the
this
mindset of
what's
the average
average
guy.
Joe, yeah.
And that's why when
Joe the plumber.
I'm like, I
Joe
don't
the
need to
plumber.
see Michael Moore give me another, preaching to the choir movie, but this film was so effective, and I gotta say, he made a case, I think, that addressed my approach to the movie and addressed, I think, your reaction in watching it, which is that he doesn't need to convince the Fox viewer Republican voter. He's trying to convince the 100 million non-voting Americans that are apathetic or feel that their voice doesn't count.
Right.
And I do think that if they watch it, it's as good a shot at any of convincing them that if you band together, you can actually shake the walls of power. And I think I think the case that he makes is actually pretty compelling, that we don't need to speak to the Democrats or the Republicans. We need to speak to the biggest voting bloc that is out there.
The non-voter.
The non-voters, which are 100 million out of 220
Crazy.
million registered voters. So, or eligible voters.
What do they want?
So,
A bunch of them that committed
well,
felonies.
it's not even, it's felony disenfranchisement, but it's also the people, there's a
Just
group
disaffected.
in Flint that are saying, I don't even have time to go to a protest. I have to decide if I can pay the water bill, or if I can pay the medical bill, or if I can pay the rent. And so they don't have time to, and then Obama, who they probably vested all their hopes and dreams
Everything.
into, he flies in. They're like, yes, finally something's going to happen. And he kind of plays it off and, does his middle of the road dance. And it's so heartbreaking when politicians do that. But I think the movie also shows you this new generation of, man on
That's the
or
key.
woman on the bus, getting to be a candidate,
And that's
the moment that
that's
we're
what
in.
fires you up is when shit gets really bad and we get past the point of no return. If you assume that we're not already there, you'll look back and you can pinpoint possible points where you should have taken a stand. And he goes through just all these things where it's like, holy shit, yeah, our nation is crazy right now. What are we going to do about it? And they interview a 100-year-old Nuremberg prosecutor who's just weeping over what we've become. And holy shit.
And what he's seen.
What he's seen. He's like the man that I prosecuted for killing, 90,000 Jews. We hanged him, and here Trump is just doing that. He's just laissez-faire, saying the same shit, walking the same path. What are we doing?
Trump just hasn't done the killing yet.
He just hasn't done the killing yet.
But he
So-
jokes and teases
but he
about
jokes
it
about
every
it.
time he opens his mouth. Yeah.
So what do we do? And it's the same. I'm getting flashbacks to Fahrenheit 9/11, where I left the theater and I'm like, holy shit, we got to do something. It's the same feeling I felt, probably in not as much of a healthy way as I felt coming out of Falling Down in 1993, where I was like, holy shit, I want to kill everybody. But it's these movies that, especially if we're oversaturated with media like we are now, the movies that make us feel something, that make us feel like we need to make a change, like that's rare. That's rare in this day and age. And
But when Mueller gets fired, I want all of you brothers to join me in the march.
yeah,
Oh, I'll
Or
be there.
Rosenstein, yeah.
I'm
Maybe
at like a
Rosenstein.
march a month in the last 2 years.
I am locked and loaded.
But I think what gives me a little more hope, because I had the same feeling after Fahrenheit 9/11, and I think it was being in LA for the first, I guess we were here about 2 years or so at that point, and I just couldn't believe, I was in such shock that Bush won re-election after feeling like everyone sees through this insanity and the war crimes and the lies to the whole country and the whole world, and they reelected him. So, but the only thing that leaving a movie like this, it feels different this time. We'll find out in about 42 days. Is when you see the teachers' marches, when you see the teenagers organizing, when you see like all the new candidates this time that are non-corporate backed, that are just people
Female.
backed, that are women, minorities, young, that are not entrenched in DC and in the current power structure. It gives me a little more hope that things could, that there's going to be pushback and we're going to get rid of a lot of these terrible people. But I guess let's check back in.
Let's check back in.
in post-November and see what happens. But
Brother Bishke and Brother Lucas are going to go right back in the theater and see Thriller in 3D IMAX, which I recommend everybody does because it's amazing. Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Is it before the trailers or after?
It's after the trailers.
Okay. So we got a few minutes.
Okay, so bone counts, guys.
Bone counts.
Let's wrap it up. Brother Zach.
So, I was thinking bone count. What should it be? Because I feel like this is not a movie. Again, this is another movie that's very timely. So I feel like I'm going to give it a bone count for what it is for me tonight.
This is tonight.
42 days before the
tonight.
midterms in 2018. It's a 3.5 bone for me. It made me feel something. Made me angry. Made me sad.
Yeah.
It made me check my own hopes and beliefs that I pin on individuals, and it was extremely effective filmmaking. I think the end was,
it was jumbled.
It was a little jumbled.
Security alert system.
It was abrupt.
Which
but
there was a warning at the Burbank 6 about the security alert system.
Oh, was there?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's funny.
But
I remember that morning with the Hawaii, the whole
that makes
fake
me
nuclear warning.
nervous now because Trump just got access to having control
He can text
of our
us.
cell
over
phones.
the Amber Alert. Yeah.
I can't wait.
So
That's where the false flag will come from. Just FYI.
I say, everyone should see it. Everyone should vote however they think best, and that everyone should actually not be apathetic and should really value the fact that you can have a voice and you can volunteer and you can give $10 to someone that is going to push back on these assholes. And so for that, I give me a little hope, give me a little anger, give me a little emotion, and give me a little adjustment. I give it a 3.5.
Give me fuel, give me
It
fire.
was very competently constructed power to the people propaganda.
Boom. Brother Bishke.
I enjoyed it. There's a lot going on. It's pretty hard for Michael Moore to come up with a tour de force of taking in everything that's going on and putting it out. I think he tries his best. There's a lot of kind of different sections of this movie, and I think some are stronger than others. But overall, I was impressed. Michael Moore is still a hero, and I'll give it 3 bones.
All right. Brother Lucas.
I definitely enjoyed this more than Fahrenheit 9/11, which I felt underwhelmed at the time. So this just grabbed me by the throat, by the gut, because as Matt can attest, in the opening, I just thought it was like the funniest, like most hilarious setup, which was just chronology. He was just starting at the beginning, and it was just, for some reason, it hit me hard. I was laughing harder than I've ever laughed in the last 10 movies, and I was actually getting self-conscious that someone was going to worry that I was like drunk or on drugs or something.
It's the power of good doc editing.
Yeah,
The power of Hillary naming all the rappers.
Oh,
yeah. Salad Dragon runner-up.
It was genius. So
Chance the Rapper?
I definitely like the echo everything Zach said. Like, I felt a lot of feels because when we got to Flint and we got to, these veterans saying like, yeah, I saw people in Iraq that had it better than people in Flint. It's like, and children, and it's like, oh my God. And then like all the things I witnessed, while skewed and slanted and like very leftist, which is all good because I'm on that side. I enjoyed it immensely. I just thought it was a tad too long because there are at least 3 to 6 different topics that you
Sure.
could just make a meal and a feast out of. Where there's so much to unpack.
You could make a mini series.
Yeah, there's so much.
It should be a YouTube series.
There could have been some fat trimmed from this for sure, and I think it would have been way just as powerful. But I give it 3.5 bones. I could definitely recommend this to my friends. I think my friends should see it.
And your enemies.
Especially.
I really was impressed, and it just made me freak out that there is gonna be like some kind of Reichstag
Yeah.
night.
There's going to be. There's
We're
going
all
to
waiting for Trump's right.
There's going to be.
Loose change, folks.
Okay, because I want these boys to go get their daily dose of Michael Jackson, 3.5 from the Lodge Master tonight. It's gonna boil back to 3 over time.
That's correct.
But tonight it's 3.5. Tonight it's
it's
3.5.
our night. It's his night.
Boys, it was a wonderful experience to go through this with you.
Hold on, am I going to get you to Orange County? Am I going to get you to Orange County?
Am I going to get you to Politicon?
Ooh!
Yeah, come to Politicon.
Only.
Everyone's invited
Only.
to Politicon.
Well, with this. Okay. We'll
We'll
discuss.
figure it out.
We'll discuss.
We'll
If
figure
you
it out.
door knock with me in Orange County, maybe.
We'll figure it out
Maybe.
off air. Politicon would be for your own benefit, though.
Tommy Lauren's gonna be there.
Love and light to everybody.
Love and
and
light.
light and vote to everybody. Go fucking do it.
Register to vote before October or something.
Just fucking do it. Yeah. That'll be our slogan. Yeah. On that
Figure
note,
it out.
On that vague, slackerific note,
Do the research.
do the research
Don't
yourself.
believe the hype.
Love and light.
Love and light and fire in your heart.
And God bless us all. Jesus Christ.
Bring me your huddled masses.
Later, y'all. Peace.
How the fuck did we get here? How the fuck do we get out?